Of course, the French had been there so long, there was this pidgin French that they had, and we had pidgin English. So we'd use a combination of English words, Vietnamese words, and French words. And we usually were able to communicate. I was asked with one of the cards, what was my take on the war, or on our involvement, after I got there. And like O'Brien, I'm going to have to tell you that with a story. I've been assigned to go out on a reconnaissance patrol to look at a section of highway we were getting ready to renovate. And before you go out, you had to go by and get your weapon. My weapon happened to be an M14 rifle. We were considered non-combat troops, so they gave us M14s, and they gave the guys that were in combat the M16s. I much preferred the 14 because if I got in a fight, I wanted something that's big enough I could whack somebody with, because I figured that I wasn't going to have much chance of shooting them. But at any rate, I went by my room to get my M14, and our house girl was in there. We had one of these places you saw was the hooch. That was Vietnamese, I learned, was hooch, where we stayed. It's probably not Vietnamese, but that's what we called it over there. And I went in, was going to get my locker, which was standing there, get my M14 out. And our house girl says, "Hey, G.I." No, "Hey, Dai Wei." That was Vietnamese for lieutenant. "Hey, Dai Wei, you go kick Buku VCS, huh?" I said, "Oh, no, baby son, me no go kick VC. Me see VC, Dai Wei, get him out." So, did I learn to speak Vietnamese? No. But we learned to communicate. And then I asked the house girl just before I left, I said, "Baby son, you think we win?" And this was after the Tet Offensive. Side story, during the Tet Offensive, her husband, who was a sergeant in the South Vietnamese Army, was killed. Her father, who was a village chief in a village close to Nha Trang, was executed by the VC. So that was her background. And by asking that question, I said, "Baby son, you think we win?" She said, "No, Dai Wei, we don't win." I said, "Baby son, why?" She said, "Vietnam, home for Charlie. Vietnam, no home for you." And you know, I think when everything's said and done, she had more insight into international relations than everybody we had in Washington had at that time. I've answered some of the questions. You've seen some of the slides. Start asking me questions and I'll try to tell you stories.
Are you going back to Nam after everything?
Have I been back?
Mm-hmm.
No. Would I go back? In a heartbeat. I'd love to go back and see what it's like now.
Take me.
Especially now that you're not worried about getting shot at. One of the most beautiful countries, well, I haven't seen that many countries. One of the most beautiful places I have ever seen. Absolutely gorgeous tropical country. Beaches are pristine. The forests where we hadn't messed them up were just really forests. And we went in with our Agent Orange, we messed up a lot of forests, but before we did, they were beautiful. And you know, That's picturesque to me. The reason it's picturesque on the screen is you don't get the smell and you don't get the sound. But you can see how pretty it is if you take those two parts of the experience out of it. The water was very, very polluted, and there was always a polluted smell to the water. And it's because the population was so heavy right around the area we were. And the river was used for the sewer system. That was local transportation. If you had to haul something, you got a little pole and put something on each end and you took off.
What do you spend most of your days doing?
I'm sorry, I've got a background noise over here and I'm not hearing it.
What do you spend most of your days doing?
I was a battalion civil engineer. I worked with the 864th Engineer Construction Battalion. Our mission was twofold. One of them was to rebuild a section of Highway 1 in Vietnam from Nha Trang, from Cam Ranh Bay north toward Nha Trang. And Nha Trang was about 25 miles north of Cam Ranh. So we were stationed there. We were building toward where we were. At the same time, we had another part of the unit was building what was referred to as a cantonment area. It was really barracks, mess halls, NCO clubs, officers clubs, motor pools, repair shops, all kinds of facilities to accommodate 10,000 people. Keep in mind, this was started in 1966 was when the battalion went into country, and we were claiming that our involvement in Vietnam was just temporary, that we weren't going to be there very long. That's what we were claiming as a government. What we were doing was building up facilities to support a contingent of 10,000 men in that one part of Vietnam. Other facilities were being built in other parts equally as large. So what we were being told here and what we were actually doing there were two very different things. So if somebody's eager to go to war, they'll tell you about anything to keep you from knowing what's really happening. Yes, ma'am. Ladies first.
When you were in your unit, did you ever see any soldiers who were in combat and that were sent to that area who, in a sense, snapped? Maybe like how Mary Ann snapped in the book, but maybe not as dramatic?
Sort of. Remember one of those other slides, I said that was my Jeep driver? Fellow's name was Evans. Not only was my Jeep driver, he's one of the draftsmen that worked with me. And Evans I'd been there about 6 months, and Evans came in and said, Lieutenant Coltrane, I want you to sign these papers so I can extend my tour over here. I said, what's wrong with you? You've made it a year. You've not been killed, you've not been hurt, you've not been messed up. Why do you want to extend? That's not what I was supposed to say, but that's what I said. And he said, well, two things. One of them, if I call it re-up, if I re-up, volunteer for another 6 months, I will get 6 weeks tour anywhere in the world that I want to go on military transport. And I've always wanted to see Europe and a couple of other things. So that's one of my reasons. The other reason is When I joined up to see action, and I haven't seen any action. And by action, he meant actually getting in firefights and that sort of thing. I said, well, what, are you volunteering to come back here as a draftsman? He said, no. I said, well, what are you coming back for? He said, I'm coming back to be a door gunner in a Huey. And I don't know if y'all picked up from O'Brien what that is, but the Hueys are the big helicopters that we flew